Welcome back, you lot. This is going to be a bit of a weird one because I know vaguely what I want to say, but I've completely failed to find a good way of scripting it in a way that sounds natural and not like some sort of weird statement or other. Effectively, there is something that Games Workshop needs to get a lot better at, and it is related specifically to all the stuff about Horus Heresy 3.0. Now, whether you're a Heresy player or not, you have probably seen some of the discussions going on around the 3rd edition of Horus Heresy, and a lot of the discussions are basically, well, this sucks, what the hell are they doing, why are so many things missing from the various books, why are a bunch of my units invalid? What is happening? Why is Games Workshop taking this route? Aside from the obvious answer of because they want to / money. There's been a lot of conversation. A hell of a lot. And a lot of it has been pretty negative. And the fact that, as someone who's not actually really invested into the Horus Heresy, it has spilled over into a lot of the platforms that I use, and is being mentioned by, frankly, people that I know don't play Heresy, speaks a little to the overall reaction to the stuff that has been, some of it leaked, some of it just explained. I think depends on where you got the information from as to the, when I say the legality of it, you know what I mean, as to whether it came from someone who was allowed to say anything or whether it came from someone who was just leaking a bunch of stuff they found. Either way, it seems like the overall reception has not been that great, and a big chunk of that seems to be down to a lack of options that used to be options. For instance, the man Pardo right here, SN Battle Reports, he had a little kind of section in this video, the ugly, the bad and the good, for the Horus Heresy 3rd edition, where he went through some of the changes, went through some of the units that have been changed. Now, I've paused on this specific section because, as you can see from the subtitles, the fact that Tartarus Terminators can't have power fists. Now, I bring this up as a specific example because this is something that, frankly, I saw and I read with the closed captions on, and I thought, what? That can't possibly be correct, not least because I've built Tartarus Terminators, and they come with power fists in the kit. In fact, they don't just come with power fists, they are shown with power fists in the preview image on the website. To take that option away would be absolutely mad. Who would do that? Who would do it? Apparently, Games Workshop. Now, it's not just the fact that they're in the kit, there are enough power fists for you to give everyone a power fist. So again, a seemingly insane decision that doesn't make any sense. I will say straight away, before anyone does, in the comments, because there will be someone who says, okay, but the power fists are also a platform for giving them lightning claws. I'm well aware of that, as we can see right here on the sprue. The lightning claws are a separate edition, but there is nothing on the power fist to suggest that they would be anything other than a legal loadout without the claws on top, because they're just power fists, because they could have those before. This is but one example of an extraordinarily long list of things that seemingly would no longer be allowed when it came to Horus Heresy on the tabletop, and funnily enough, that made people upset, which I can totally understand. Being told that a significant chunk of your army just isn't in the book anymore for reasons that are equally baffling and seemingly stupid, it's not going to do anyone any favours when you're supposed to be building up hype for the new edition of a game, especially one that has been, frankly, quite heavily focused on. Like, they've done a lot to try and bring Horus Heresy to a wider audience. They've done a lot to try and improve the kits, or at least move the kits over from the prohibitively expensive Forge World resin over to the far more reasonable plastic side of things. So to do all of that work and then to go, well, if you've got a bunch of Tartarus Terminators who have a weapon option that is in the box, you can't use them, that is a bit mad. And again, it's just one example, but it's one example of many, and it's a very good example of a seeming lack of logic when it comes to some of the decisions that they made. Now, the thing is, that's not the end of it. It's not like everyone's got annoyed, Games Workshop has remained silent, nothing's happened since, because they released this article just now, and this actually goes some way to addressing the concerns. They even say, right here, we've also noticed that some of you are concerned that certain units in your existing armies might not be usable in the new edition, especially if they don't feature in the book for that faction. They even specifically mention the fact that the Tartarus Terminators with Power Fists shall still be playable, along with Destroyers with Jump Packs, which that also blew me away. I didn't realise that Destroyers with Jump Packs weren't going to be allowed. and lovingly converted White Scars champions on bikes won't be resigned to a life on the shelf. So just so you realise, this is all of the stuff that will have playable rules and unit datasheets in the upcoming Legacies of the Age of Darkness PDF. So this is the stuff that isn't in the books, right? This is quite the list. There's just so much here. There is so much here. And looking at this, and knowing that this many things seemingly were just not available anymore, I can 100% sympathise and understand all the people who are like, what the hell is this? Like, what is this? What is happening? I get it. I have seen people say, oh, well, it was a knee-jerk reaction. People should have waited. But let's face it, Games Workshop have, in the past, just got rid of stuff. They have, before, gone, here's a whole bunch of models that are just not usable anymore. They've done it before. There's not really any reason to think that they might not do it again, and when we look at one of the more recent examples of the Stormcast Eternals, where effectively their entire first wave of miniatures simply weren't a thing anymore, you can understand why people might get upset, might get fractious, might get concerned that this is in fact a permanent decision and that they had no intention of allowing this stuff to be played ever again. Admittedly, the scale of this is mad, and as such it's fair to say that it's unlikely that it would be as bad as it seemed, but there have been moves every now and again from Games Workshop that have not done a huge amount to gain trust or sympathy when it comes to sudden decisions that fly in the face of logic. No, we have plenty of historical examples. Let's not talk about Cursed City again. We've covered that several times now, but you get what I mean, right? Now, there is a part of this article that feels a bit off. So it says here, why were these rules not in the books? The army lists are a reflection of the current range of miniatures. They are written to reflect the contents of boxed units, so new players can build armies without feeling the need to buy multiple kits just to make one unit. That's something that they've been moving towards for a long time across everything, so, you know, I get it. It's not fun, but I get it. The boxes themselves are designed to represent the most typical war gear loadouts that those units would have. It also means that these rulebooks can still be compact enough to transport to your games. This is fine. It's the fact that, you know, one of the examples that they gave, Tartarus Terminators with Power Fists, they're saying that it's stuff that is written to reflect the contents of boxed units when the contents have got the Power Fist in them. That is a bit of a weird one. I'm not entirely sure I follow the logic on some of the kits, but for a lot of them you did have to convert or kit bash the thing that you wanted, so whilst it's, again, not particularly fun, I do get why they do it that way. The clarification that they will be allowing these units at official Warhammer Horus Heresy campaign events is nice, and hopefully will prompt other tournament organisers to do the same thing, and they do emphasise it that it's a narrative wargame above all else. That's fine too. They also clarify that there's a few notable absences from the list, including a selection of named characters who have never had miniatures released. I mean, again, I get it, it's just not a fun thing to do. Now, this is where I'm going to have a little bit of trouble formulating what I'm trying to say, and I'm trying to do this in a way that doesn't sound like I'm just going after them for the sake of going after them, because I don't think I am. This is an instance where Games Workshop has given a decent response, and they have, I think in some ways, maybe not undone the damage that they did in terms of just cutting a load of stuff out without any sort of real suggestion as to why. It's the time it's taken to do it, and the fact that they must know at this point that this kind of reaction to changes like that are inevitable. They've done this multiple times before. They've removed firstborn units from sale, they've taken stuff out of codexes, they have, as we've already said, just sacked off half the range of Stormcast Eternals and just gone, those aren't a thing anymore. They've moved armies over to the old world, or vice versa. Like, they have done a lot of things in the past that have caused people to be upset for, I think, for a lot of the time, decent enough reasons. In this specific instance, it feels like people have been talking about this for a good few days. I mean, when was Pardo's video uploaded? There's a question. 4 days ago. So that was when I first started seeing mention of the amount of stuff being removed, and that was through SN Battle Reports. Now, I don't know if they've got an NDA with Games Workshop or not. Either way, they are a source from which I saw some of the information, okay? That is quite a while to let people run rampant. That is quite a while to just allow people to think, well, this is just how it is. That is a long time to get a lot of ill will festering towards the launch of a new edition. That is a lot of time to have people, frankly, shit all over the thing you're trying to promote. Now, I'm not saying it's a hour-long fix. All they have to do is just write an article and then send it off. It might be that this article was always due to come out, but it was due to come out at a certain point and they've had to move it up. It might be that they did have to quickly go through and put this stuff together. But at this point, reactions like this to these decisions, they have to know. On some level, someone, somewhere, in GW must know that this is not going to go down well and we need to be prepared to deal with it when it happens. This company leaks like a fucking sieve, right? People talk about what's coming up well in advance of when Games Workshop talk about what's going up. Hell, Valrak often tells us what Games Workshop is doing weeks before Games Workshop tell us what Games Workshop is doing. And there has to be someone there who will have gone, you know what, if people get hold of these rules early, there's a good chance there could be a bit of a problem here, because we've removed a lot of stuff. And generally speaking, people don't like being told that their models are no longer usable. Should we not have a contingency? Should we not have a thing? Should we not have something that we can just send out straight off the bat? If we see people getting upset, we can go, hey, look, chill out. There will be rules for this. We will explain which rules are for what, which things are being taken out, which things are staying, why we've done it this way. At the very least, that changes the focus of conversation away from, look how they've shafted us all in the new edition, and towards, okay, they have changed some stuff, but a lot of the things that we were upset about, it turns out there is a contingency for that. It turns out we can still use it and we're not going to have to homebrew all of our favourite units back into the game. This isn't not a bad response. This is actually a decent response. It's laying out all of the things that will be in this PDF for the Legacies of the Age of Darkness. It's laying out all of the stuff that you'll still have access to, all of the stuff that they still intend to be usable for their own, Games Workshop run Horus Heresy events, which is all great. But this is after a week of non-stop anger and upset and frustration. This is after a week of God knows how many times I've seen people say, well, I guess I'm just not going to play 3rd edition then, I'm just going to stick with 2nd. Or saying, I just completed an army that's full of all this stuff that is no longer available, so what the hell do I do? This is a weird thing where they have done the right thing in addressing the concerns, but it feels like the concerns have been concerning for a bit too long. I don't know, I just feel like the reaction time is off, I think that's the main thing. Good response, good solution. The reaction time to all the upset, I think that's what's lacking. And I think probably, if they're able to, that's something that could do with getting a little bit better, Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments down below. In the meantime, feel free to click all the things. If I don't see you before the live stream on Friday for the big summer preview, I'll see you then. And if I do see you before then I'll see you before then, which I didn't really need to say out loud, did I? Because that was fairly obvious. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you for the next one, whatever it is.